Finally, some good news for the American women over in London. Madison Keys is moving on to the third round at Wimbledon. The Aussie Open champ wanted early momentum, and she got it in her defeat of Serbia's Olga Danilovic in straight sets. She racked up 19 winners and finished the match in 75 minutes. So she is headed on to the next round over across the pond at the All England Club. And take a look at the way things went for her. Her first serve was working, getting 80% of that in. Took 4 of 13 opportunities to get the break and take down Danilovic, and now advance where she has been very good in her career on grass. And we'll see her journey continue over at Wimbledon. We continue our coverage of Wimbledon with the one and only CiCi Bellis. Nobody better to talk tennis than her. And CiCi, personally for me, I'm so glad that Maddie won, because I couldn't take any more heartbreak after what we saw yesterday. So seeing Maddie get this breeze of a win, how nice is that for her moving forward and just the whole entire draw?
Yeah, I completely agree. It was a tough day yesterday for spectators and fans of American tennis, but really good showing from Maddie today. Honestly, not an easy opponent in Danilovic, who's known for kind of taking out bigger seeds in majors and small events, kind of a streaky player. But Keys did a really good job. She played high percentage tennis from the start, was going for big margins. Danilovic made it a little easy for her. Honestly, she made a bunch of kind of uncharacteristic unforced errors, but good sign for Keys to get through a player like that and keep her unforced error count low. For Maddie, she's the biggest hitter on tour. Besides Sabalenka, she might even be a bigger hitter than her, and she's at her best when she is going for those big margins. So, she knows when she steps out onto the court that every match is going to be on her racket, and it's really whether she doesn't beat herself out there, and she showed that she could do that, for kind of a 2-week stretch earlier this year in Australia, and it's looking good overall for her on the grass so far. Yeah,
we see Keys' past 5 results over at Wimbledon. She has a record of 52-14 on grass, which is the 3rd highest amongst active women, with a minimum of 15 matches after Venus Williams and Petra Kvitova. So she knows how to play on the grass. Just moving forward for her, what do you like of her prospects to be able to make a deep run there?
Yeah, I really like it. You mentioned her serves working. I think that's such a key on the grass right now. It's been a kind of an interesting few days of weather at Wimbledon. We had the heat the last few days, and then today it's been rainy, and the grass is slippery right now, so it's really favoring kind of that first strike tennis, and nobody's better at that than Madison Keys. So if she keeps that first serve percentage high, she's going for big margins. It's going to be tough to beat her.
It was a tough defeat to watch Coco golf for the American tennis fans. That's one of the reasons of my heartbreak yesterday. And I want to kind of go back to what we saw yesterday and first focus on Coco, because of course she's riding high, coming off of winning the French Open, and just did not have it at all yesterday, losing in straight sets. What did you see from Coco, and maybe the lessons learned from if you win the French and then try to then come right here to Wimbledon with that short time span in between them?
Yeah, it's so hard. I mean, she looked a little bit kind of mentally drained yesterday, not necessarily physically, but it looked like she was just spent. And, she did a lot of media and press after winning the French Open, as she should. And, we have to take into account she's still so young. This is a lot for a young person to handle, kind of the spotlight being on her and all this attention on her. So it's, a learning experience every time she comes away from a big win like that. And we'll see, maybe next year if she wins the French, we'll see if she kind of tones down the media maybe a little bit to more focus on, prep for Wimbledon. But it's so hard. She was so excited about winning that French, and, she got to play one grass court tournament going into Wimbledon and didn't have a great showing, kind of was a bit mentally drained in that as well, and just wasn't really able to recover. So again, just a learning experience for her. She'll get some time now to, regroup and reset a little bit before the U.S. hard court swing. And, she plays well in New York. She's going to be ready for that, and I think that's where her sights are set next.
Yeah, so Coco saying bye-bye, Jessica Pegula saying bye-bye, and just it seems the theme overall for Wimbledon, those top 10 seeds have not fared too well. 8 total, the most ever losses of a top 10 seed in the Open era in the first 2 days of a tournament. 4 on the men's side, 4 on the women's side. Is there anything you can pinpoint to why we've seen so many upsets and just the shocking nature of it?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything specific. I would say the heat on the first few days on the first rounds have definitely kind of favored bigger hitters and kind of first strike tennis. For Coco, she played someone that was, known for kind of streaky tennis. Jess Pegula, maybe not as much, but for Coach Loretto, it was a great day. So I think, it was tough conditions out there. It's even tough conditions today, but overall, I think, maybe a little bit of mental on that side of things for Coco. And, for Pegula, she was kind of one of the favorite Americans coming into this. Her game transfers so well to the grass, so maybe it was a little bit of pressure. 2 Americans have won both slams already this year. The spotlight was on her, so yeah, a little bit of pressure maybe for Pegula.
So I'm going to ask you here with your fan hat on instead of as your former pro player hat on. Is this good for the game, seeing this many upsets, or would you rather have it go chalk all the way?
Yeah, I think it shows the depth, especially in the women's game right now, and just how strong it is. I think, a player that's 80 in the world can beat someone that's top 5 on any given day, and that just shows how strong the women's game is right now, the men's as well, but even more so on the women's side. I would say, fan favorites like a Coco Gauff or a Jess Pegula, it's definitely tough for fans to see them go down, but overall I think it's good for the game of women's tennis in general, just showing how strong it is overall.
Yeah, it's just certainly interesting when you turn on a match and you see oh wow, seed 2, seed 3 is struggling like this, and you don't expect to see that very often. Someone who did not struggle today and is moving on to the third round is Aryna Sabalenka. At this point right here, with what we've seen so far in the tournament, is it Sabalenka's tournament to lose?
Absolutely. I think she is massively the favorite. Honestly, going into Wimbledon, she was my pick to win the tournament, and now even more so with some of the seeds dropping. I think her game just transfers so well to the grass. She had a really rough end in that French Open final against Coco. It wasn't her day. I think, some of the shots she hit in that final could have been winners on a quicker surface like grass, but Coco obviously just incredibly quick, especially on the clay. So kind of had a tough break there. But yeah, her serve's working for her. Her groundies just penetrate the grass so well, and yeah, had a great win today against Buskova, who's never an easy out. She doesn't really seem to be fazed by the top seeds going out, and definitely kind of has the advantage of being a top player playing on those show courts, not having any delays from the rain. So it's looking really good for Sabalenka at Wimby here.
Yeah, things looking good for Sabalenka. Things on the other side not looking too good for Frances Tiafoe right now. He is in a battle with Cameron Norrie in the 4th set. He's down 2-1, and Norrie's looking to get a break right here and maybe wrap things up soon. When you see Tiafoe and you know that how big of a following he has here in the U.S., how much does American tennis need Tiafoe to pull through and get this win?
Yeah, we really need him. It's, very tough playing a Brit on the grass. There's kind of a running joke among the American tennis players that, the Brits sometimes take the entire clay season off just to train on the grass and prep for Wimbledon, obviously giving them a huge advantage. Norrie's been a top 10 player, but has kind of struggled with consistency over the last few years. I think he's hovering around 60 in the world now, but his game transfers so well to a quick surface, kind of having that bunt, kind of flat backhand. He uses his lefty serve really well, especially that slice to his advantage, and is really comfortable on the grass, as most Brits are, just having that, time on the surface. But yeah, I'd love to see Frances try and, come back and take this set. He's not quite as good, I would say, on a fast surface. His backswings are a little bit bigger, a little bit, more complicated, I would say, than Norrie. But yeah, we'll see if he can get through this. This is a lot of pressure riding on him for American tennis right now.
Yeah, they are playing over there on the main stage there, court number 1, and Norrie will have an opportunity to serve for the match right here. Overall, how do you feel about just the conversation when it comes to American men's tennis and how they are doing? Is it a tired conversation? Is it something that, okay, just when someone rises to the top, we'll see it? What do you make of all that?
Yeah, I think the next step for us is really getting an American that can win slams. And, we've got a ton in the running right now. We've got Fritz, who's been playing so well on the grass. Could be a little bit drained with that first round and then having won a couple titles coming into this on the grass. But, Frances, obviously, we're hoping he can break back and get back into this. Ben Shelton's obviously still in the tournament. Tommy Paul. We really want to see one of these Americans kind of take that next step, at least get to a major final and then potentially win. We're in a bit of a drought right now, so that's kind of the next step, I would say, for American men.
Norrie's never beaten a top-ranked player at Wimbledon, and he's trying to do that right now. Like, what do you think maybe is holding back the men, Americans, of course, to reach the pinnacle like we see happen time in and time out on the women's side?
Yeah, I mean, stringing together 2 weeks of incredible tennis is really, really hard, especially on the men's side. You know, they have to play 3 out of 5. It's such a physical battle in addition to being mental. So, you know, we love to favor kind of some of those players like Ben Shelton who can, you know, have a big serve, get him a lot of free points, take some of the legs and physicality out of it, and kind of have that, you know, huge kind of first strike tennis and get him some free points. That's what we're really kind of looking for, especially on a fast surface like grass. So that really does favor kind of the Ben Sheltons, the Fritzes of the world for American tennis, just having that huge weapon. Hopefully, you know, take some time off the court and, you know, string together 2 weeks of really good tennis and you know, beating players 3 out of 5 is really, really difficult. So we're hoping we can to get some of those either here or at the US Open.
Yeah, you mentioned that 3 out of 5, and then that makes me think to Jessica Pegula, who was talking about saying she doesn't really have the attention span too much, and she would not want to go to play 3 out of 5 when it comes to the majors. Where do you factor in on that conversation? Do you like the fact that the men do 3 out of 5, or would you like it to stay 2 out of 3 no matter what the tournament is?
I mean, we would certainly see a lot more upsets if it was 2 out of 3. You know, how many times have we seen Djokovic, you know, go down either a set or 2 sets to love down and come back and, you know, a massive, you know, 5-set victory in the first or second round of a slam? We've been seeing that a lot, you know, for him. Even in his first round, he had a difficult time. So I think, you know, we'd see a lot more upsets. It's, you know, great tradition that we have the 3 out of 5, and it really does favor the top players, you know, physicality wise, game wise. You know, they can kind of outlast a couple streaky sets from maybe a lower ranked player. So yeah, I go back and forth on it. It's really, really tough physically. I would say we're seeing more injuries though on the women's side, just with how long our, you know, the WTA season is. So it's a tough conversation. I would say, you know, it's nice to see the men continue with the 3 out of 5 tradition, but it's definitely favors the top players for sure.
Yeah, CiCi, the beauty of live TV, this just in, that Frances Tiafoe Cameron Norrie match has officially gone final, and Tiafoe losing in 4 sets as Norrie gets that win 4-6, 6-4, 6-3, 7-5. Just your reaction seeing another American man go down.
Yeah, it's so tough. And, you know, I think Frances wasn't really expected to go super far here. Grass isn't his best surface. So I'd say it's maybe, you know, somewhat of a positive. You know, he can get a breather. He can prep for that U.S. hardcourt swing in the U.S. Open, which is definitely his best surface. He plays so well in New York. So I'd say, you know, keeping his sights on that is going to be the next big goal for him. And he's done super well in New York in the past. So I would say, you know, he has a great chance later this summer there.
Yeah, so now we, at least for his sake, look forward towards New York and seeing the type of magic that can maybe happen once again for Tiafoe, as all of America will root for the Americans. CiCi Bellis, thank you so much. Always a pleasure talking all things major tennis all year long. And when it comes to that U.S. Open, it will be here before you know it, August 24th to September 7th, out there in the Big Apple of New York City. And the Wimbledon Championships will conclude next weekend, where we will find out who will be able to take that crown and head into New York looking to maybe go back-to-back winning a major.
Fifth-seeded Taylor Fritz is on to the 3rd round at Wimbledon. The American outlasted Canada's Gabriel Diallo in 5 sets on Wednesday in a match that lasted 3 hours and 6 minutes. Fritz won a 3rd set tie break and dropped the 4th set before prevailing in the deciding set 6-3. But it's been anything but easy through 2 rounds for Fritz, who had to dig out of a 2-set hole to win his opening match on Tuesday. So with day 3 in the books, here's a look at some of the other notable results. 2-time Wimbledon champion Carlos Alcaraz made quick work of unseeded Oliver Tarvid, winning in straight sets. He joins Borg and Nadal as the only man in tennis history to win 20 or more matches at both the French Open and Wimbledon before his 23rd birthday. Time now to welcome in CBS Sports tennis analyst CiCi Bellis. And CiCi, Taylor Fritz has gotten more than he bargained for through 2 rounds at Wimbledon. His quarter of the bracket is wide open for him, but how alarming is it that he did need 5 sets and over 6 hours of match time to get past 2 unseeded opponents to this point?
Yeah, it has been a wild ride for him so far. His opponent today is no stranger to the grass. He won a warm-up tournament coming into Wimbledon, so both players obviously very familiar with the surface. Both players' game styles actually really transfer well to the grass. Big servers, big hitters. Conditions right now at Wimbledon also are kind of favoring those big servers and hitters. The grass has been really, really dry the last few days with the heat, and now with the rain today, it's kind of slick in the court. So big hitting is winning. So Fritz, had another big hitter today. He's played two of the tallest players in the ATP top 50 the last 2 days. So he kind of got two mirrored opponents, which is interesting. But yeah, he got through it. He's played 3 days in a row now, though. So have to wonder kind of if he's getting, mentally fatigued alongside physically, again, winning those two warm-up tournaments coming in. So we'll have to see. Overall, I think, he's got a really good draw here. It's like you said, it's really opened up. So I'd love to see him go far here.
Yeah, maybe talking about just kind of like that a little slow start in the amount of time, hopefully not going to play too much of a factor into that fatigue that you mentioned. But let's move over to the women's side, because 6th-seeded Madison Keys cruised into the 3rd round after a grueling 3-setter in the first round. Keys took down Olga Danilovic 6-4, 6-3 in 75 minutes early on Wednesday. Keys seeking to become the first American since Serena Williams to win the Australian Open and Wimbledon in the same season. So, CiCi, we've already seen the chaos on the women's side. Number 2, Coco Gauff, and number 3, Jessica Pegula, both upset on Tuesday. But what do you make of the form and maybe the path for Madison Keys now?
Yeah, I love it. Honestly, it was such a good showing for her in the 2nd round today. Not an easy opponent in Danilovic, who's kind of known for taking out top seeds at majors and kind of smaller events. So we were hoping there wasn't going to be another massive upset. And, Keys did a really good job. She played high percentage tennis, wasn't going for too much. Danilovic, on the other hand, made some uncharacteristic unforced errors. Wasn't really her day, but good sign for Keys to get through a player like that in the beginning of a major and keep her kind of unforced error count low. She's one of, if not the biggest hitters on tour, and when she's out there, she knows the match is on her racket, so it's about whether she's not beating herself, and showed that she can do that today, and she showed that she can do it for a 2-week stretch in Australia earlier this year. So I like her chances here, especially for American tennis on the women's side. She's our best chance, I think, so far.
All right, and then on 6th seed on the men's side, that's a name that I feel like everyone knows. Novak Djokovic continuing his quest for a major title, number 25 on Thursday, set to face Dan Evans in the 2nd round on center court. But I want to get your expectations for the 38-year-old Djokovic on Thursday and moving forward.
Yeah, Djokovic, he didn't play any warm-up tournament coming into this Wimbledon. It's tough to kind of work your way into tournaments like this on the grass, especially when it's such a short season. He's trying to save his body, playing less tournaments. He is getting older. He's 38 now. He's a 7-time champion here, though, so he's very comfortable on the grass, knows it like the back of his hand, and had a good couple wins so far. Nothing special, like you said, playing Dan Evans. It's never easy playing a Brit on the grass, but I don't see him having too many issues with Dan Evans. Hasn't been, playing the most consistent tennis, but, overall, we don't know how long Djokovic is going to play. It could be, the last Wimbledon and the end to, such an incredible era of the big three. So it'll be a sad day to see, that day when he retires, but, he did well at the French. We'll see if he can continue that run here.
Yeah, you talk about being 38-year-old, maybe being seasoned will aid him going into this one. But hey, we've seen plenty of upsets, both on the men's and women's draw so far. But who are you putting on upset alert as we look ahead to Thursday?
Yeah, I couldn't have predicted most of the upsets that have happened so far, so it's pretty tough to say. But, on the men's side, I'd love to see Riley Opelka come through. He plays fellow American, actually, Brandon Nakashima. But, like I mentioned, the courts right now are really favoring those big hitters. And Opelka's got certainly one of, if not the biggest serves on tour, so definitely favoring him there. On the women's side, I'd love to see Katie McNally take Iga Swiatek down. I think she's kind of my dark horse here. Iga maybe doesn't love grass quite as much. But, yeah, Riley on the men's and Katie McNally on the women's.
Upsets, dark horses, and plenty more to look forward to. CiCi, we appreciate you stopping by with the insight. Thank you. Wimbledon's 2nd round continues with the singles match. As we mentioned, 7-time Wimbledon champ Novak Djokovic facing the British wildcard Daniel Evans. World number 1 Jannik Sinner coming off a seamless victory in round 1, looking to build on that outing. And on the women's side, CiCi likes Katie McNally to give Iga Swiatek a run for her money. The day's play will begin at 6 a.m. Eastern time on Thursday.